Good evening, everyone, respected panelists and all the joinees. Today, we are going to conduct our panel discussion on STEM Part 5. Our topic of discussion in STEM is how to improve STEM curriculum and instruction in the sequence of last discussion, that was how to turn students into problem solvers. Our panel members for today, they are Nisha Sharendra ma'am, founder Oceana Seer Group, Dubai; Meera Ramanathan ma'am, principal Lodha World School; Shilpa Jejurkar ma'am, principal Amba International School; Radhika Srinivasan ma'am, principal the Sri Ram Universal School; and Anubha Srivastava ma'am, principal DISH Delhi. Thank you all the respected members for giving your valuable time being with us, and we all will be enlightened by your valuable thought. Thank a lot. First question that's going to be asked from Meera ma'am. Do schools need separate STEM curriculum, ma'am? Please elaborate on this part.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sushil Sinha, and a very warm welcome to all the participants here. So to address the first question, which is, do schools need a separate STEM curriculum and why? So I definitely think that, yes, schools do need a separate STEM curriculum. That's my view. And I think so because I think STEM curriculum incorporates multiple disciplines at the same time. I think that's the beauty of having a STEM, or in fact, I would go to say a STEAM curriculum, which also includes the arts in it. So in order to encourage this kind of multiple disciplines where children are exploring, they're questioning, researching, they're discovering, and building innovative skills, it is extremely important for schools to definitely focus on having a separate STEM curriculum. Also, to add on to this, I'm very curious, as I was reading a lot about this before this, and I found that there's a lot of research that tells you that there's a very strong link between STEM and early childhood. And that's what really got me interested, that if children in their early years are exposed to this STEM curriculum, then it really prepares them for all the future careers. And in fact, here I would like to quote Indra Nooyi, the CEO of Pepsi. Okay, and she had this, she said, one of the things that my experience has taught me is that you are trained as a scientist in your youth through your high school and college. If you stay with the STEM disciplines, you can pretty much learn all the subjects as you move along in life. And your scientific disciplines play a very important role and ground you as well as you move into positions of higher and higher authority, whatever the job is. So I think that this is a very, very important statement that she has made, because a lot of us grow up thinking that arts is very separate from commerce, and very separate from engineering, and very separate from medical. We grow up in these compartments and boxes, and somehow it influences how we grow as children. And introducing this STEAM curriculum right from preschool kind of breaks those barriers and those fears that people have, even gender-based ideas of robotics is for boys and humanities is for girls, or arts is for girls. It also breaks those kind of gender stereotypes in learning. So yes, I do feel that it is necessary for schools to have a separate STEM curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for beautiful answer. Next question is again for you. Do teachers need any specialization to implement STEM subjects? What is the role of professional development practices in the school in developing strong STEM teachers?
Right. So, of course, if there is a separate curriculum, I think it is also important that we train teachers in that sense. So, building on the same point that we have all grown up not exposed to everything that we would have probably taken up today. And so, yes, taking up training and giving specialization training to teachers on STEM subjects is something that is the responsibility of the school. And there are many, many courses, even graduate courses are available today for becoming a STEM educator. There are lots of diploma and degree certificate courses that are available, which actually help teachers think through these multiple disciplines. So having or becoming a STEM educator which means that even the teacher needs to teach in those multiple disciplines, for which means she needs to think of it herself. And if she is not going to be able to make those multidisciplinary connections herself, then how is she going to bring that in the classroom? So I think, yes, it's absolutely important. In fact, I think I did find a site which kind of tells you what kind of STEM education courses are available for teachers. I will put it up in the chat box as we progress to the other questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Can you read that website also, please?
Yes, it's called alleducationschools.com and resources. I will just put it here in the chat. I'm sure there are many other courses available, but this is what I found, that this is a comprehensive space where you can find all the possible courses on STEM for STEM educators.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for giving this important information. It's a very important resource as well. Nisha, ma'am, welcome. Next question, next topic is for you. In our previous episode, we talked about the interdisciplinary nature of STEM as a subject. Do you think teachers and schools in our schools are using this approach to see STEM flourishing in their classroom?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sushilji, for welcoming me once again. So, as in our previous episodes, we talked about interdisciplinary nature of STEM. As we know, it is an acronym. STEM, STEAM, or STREAM, all are acronyms for the subjects and are integrated to form a new subject, which we call STEM. So I think before delving into the topic of whether our teachers or schools are using this approach or not, I think we should explain on this platform that what is interdisciplinary approach to teaching and learning, so that they can themselves, I can see there are so many participants, so that they can themselves see whether they are implementing this approach in their teaching or their schools or not. So I think firstly, it is significant to understand that what an interdisciplinary learning is. So the idea behind interdisciplinary learning is to support students to understand bodies of knowledge from two or more disciplines or subject groups in order to integrate them and create new understanding. To understand this, I think the best way to explain why it matters is to show how interdisciplinary approaches can help us in our everyday lives. So let us understand it with an example, or I can say a story. So this is a story about a farmer. Now, this farmer who is worried about his town in the face of climate changes due to global warming. So he needs to do something to save his and his community's crops. If we look at the problem from only one perspective or discipline, Would he find a solution? So the farmer is really worried about how his agricultural town will face with changes due to global warming. His maize wouldn't be worth much after such torrential rains. So he also knows that in a few months there might be no rain at all and his crops will suffer again. So rains seem to be getting heavier and the droughts longer. The current weather pattern seems to be unpredictable. So he has a need to understand the why and what he can possibly do to save the community's crops. So what he does, he just calls a friend who is a meteorologist. So this meteorologist shows him historical climate trends and explain how precipitation and drought patterns have changed. His friend reassures him that there are ways to manage fluctuations in water volume through drainage and irrigation systems. So what he does, he takes one step further. He sends an email to the local farmers explaining that if they collect scientific data about flooding levels, the scientists and mathematicians can create accurate models for their microclimate and set up effective water systems. By considering multiple points of view around the flooding issue, the farmer constructs a new understanding of the complex causes of his community water management problem and possible integrated solutions. So like the farmer, we all came up against complex challenges, but it's how we go about solving them that matters. So I think we should take a moment to think about a recent challenge we have faced. So I think schools should develop and implement interdisciplinary learning through a range of teaching designs. They should be responsible for engaging students in at least one collaboratively planned interdisciplinary unit that involves at least two subject groups. It can be maths, it can be science and maths all together. It can be engineering, designing some prototypes. In later on in our this talk shows, we will discuss how the two subjects can be collaborated. So the question arises, how do schools get started? So I think schools should provide time within the school day, after school, or through professional development events so that teachers can collaborate within subject groups and across disciplines. It is not necessary to integrate all subjects to form an interdisciplinary unit. I think in theory it may be possible, but it would be very hard to manage. So teachers can begin to integrate interdisciplinary learning framed around two subject groups that combine forces. This way, teachers can effectively plan opportunities for students to integrate knowledge and skills that they will use to demonstrate new understanding. I think this is the way they can begin with, and they can reflect whether they are using it in their curriculum or not. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am, for such a beautiful explanation. Next topic is again for you. What is the role of collaboration between teachers in integrating STEM concepts? How do interdisciplinary teaching and learning foster collaboration?
Yes, I think the core of interdisciplinary teaching and learning process is the collaboration and the collaboration between teachers. How two subjects or more than two subjects can be integrated with the collaborative efforts of the teachers. Their pedagogical knowledge and their subject knowledge should come together. I think most of the teachers or educators work under an illusion of a common purpose. It is common for institutions, schools to have a mission or vision statement that describes what they value and how to achieve it. I think every teacher or every principal, every educator must agree with me that we have this mission and vision statement written all over, like one wall is dedicated, or in our literatures of the school, or on the website, the mission and vision statement is there. But I think, however, these statements often contain vague phrases. Sorry to say, but I think it is vague. To achieve authentic collaboration, there is a need to unpack such phrases to have a common understanding. I think schools are responsible for engaging students in at least one collaboratively planned interdisciplinary unit that includes more than one subject group in each year of their studies. For if we always take students at the center. So if we are planning it for the students, I think teacher will also collaborate to make an interdisciplinary unit. However, the culture of schools has long discouraged collaboration, supporting isolated teacher behaviors, especially in secondary education if we talk about. Learning is organized into subject disciplines, like as a response to increasing specialization. However, as knowledge and information multiply, critical thinkers must successfully integrate disciplinary perspectives to understand complex issues and ideas. So I think it is imperative for schools that collaborate to have shared visions. In addition, I think there should be infrastructure that fosters teachers' interdisciplinary collaboration. So what kind of infrastructure I'm talking about? It is not about providing a meeting room or seminar halls. I think that while we have built the structure for collaboration in the form of people, time, and place, we have failed to provide the infrastructure for collaboration. Process, common definitions, and systems constitute collaborative infrastructure, and the lack of these elements can undermine collective work. I believe that teams need to do three things to build collaborative infrastructure. Firstly, put your purpose on the table. Secondly, make your individual bets about learning clear and define your team's Venn diagram. These three things I think are important for collaborative infrastructure. And if I will take a longer time if I will explain all this, but I think I should, what I am talking about. So firstly, what is putting your purpose on the table? I think most educators work under an illusion of a common purpose. Almost every school I work with has a mission or vision statement that describes why teachers teach and students learn. These statements usually contain phrases like students will be equipped for 21st century work, or lifelong learning. I think these phrases are too vague to provide much guidance about what teaching skills to build and what skills to be de-emphasized. And this issue is worse in STEM, where vague aspirations like training good scientific mathematical thinkers hide all manner of critical differences in opinion about the nature of good teaching. In these differences in purpose matter. If one teacher believes that the purpose of STEM education is to create scientifically and mathematically literate citizens who individually can process scientific popular literature to make informed political decisions, this implies something critical about how they will approach creating assessments and lessons. Now compare that purpose with one that aspires to create practicing citizens scientists who can apply the scientific methods rigorously to real life scientific and engineering problems. These two purposes certainly have some overlap, but two teachers with these distinct purposes will not see eye to eye on how to write a project or test together. So developing robust collaboration between STEM teachers requires alignment around a clear and detailed purpose to avoid using jargon to hide disagreement. Secondly, I think making individual bets. STEM educators signal their assumptions about student learning through the instructional choices they make. Yeah, I also provide training in the schools, and when I work with teams in schools, I describe these assumptions as bets. A best guess theory about the connection between a teacher action, student action, and learning. Okay, consider two physics teachers who have just introduced kinetic and potential energy. One physics teacher might define a rigorous homework assignment as one that gives student a series of repeated practice problems or calculating kinetic and potential energy. In the selection of this homework assignment, the teacher has made an implicit bet that students learn a new concept best when given multiple chances to practice a discrete type of operation. And if we talk about another physics teacher, at the same school might define rigorous homework as a single complex energy problem that requires students to unpack multiple concepts in a real life scenario. This teacher has made a bet that students learn a new concept best when they have to grapple with complexity and pull information from a messy situation. If you remember in the last session, we talked about struggling, problem solving skills. We talked about grappling. Now, neither of these teachers is wrong, but they have both made different bets about the connection between their actions and students' learning. Even though they might both label their assignment as rigorous, they are speaking different language and may not even know it. STEM teachers in particular can have widely varying bets depending on whether they come from a more project-based or traditional pedagogical style. So I think teams can jumpstart collaboration around STEM by openly discussing their individual bets. Teams do not need to strive to have the same bets. Discussing the assumption that teachers have made about instruction lays a foundation for collaboration, and individual teachers may agree to disagree on certain elements of their practice. Collaborative teams must approach these conversations non-judgmentally, striving to remain open to the ways what other teachers think about their work. So I think these are the starting points, and this kind of infrastructure we should maintain and we should create to foster collaboration in STEM teaching.
Thank you, ma'am, for such a nice elaboration on this part. Next topic is again for you. What best practices and strategies can teachers use in a STEM classroom? Kindly answer for the teachers who want to begin with STEM and who are already using it and want to improve it.
I think we have talked about many strategies and practices in our last 4 episodes. But I think main approaches that teachers can take when teaching students STEM. Firstly, we talked about project-based learning. So this is the project-based method. It encourages students to learn skills and apply their knowledge by taking part in a project. They work for an extended period to research and create a solution to a problem or query. And teacher's role is to be a facilitator and encourage students to take full control of their projects from start to finish. Few example, as we already discussed about designing an app or building a model of a bridge. These can be the examples. Small projects can be introduced. We talked about the small project-based learning in the kindergarten also in our previous episodes. Secondly, the method can be, as we discussed in our 4th episode about the problem-based learning. These are similarities between this method and project-based learning. But the key difference here is that the student must analyze and evaluate a problem that is posed to them. So this requires a high level of thinking, as there is not usually one clear answer to the problem. There are multiple solutions. So this approach encourages creativity, teamwork, and leadership. So an example can be getting your students to create their own business plans or to solve a societal need. This can be a problem-based learning example. And thirdly, to begin with, teachers can begin with the inquiry-based learning. The main purpose of inquiry-based learning is to emphasize the student's role in the learning process. So they are encouraged to ask as many questions as they like surrounding their subject matter. Skills that are developed from this type of learning include critical thinking, questioning, and problem solving. And as it is student-led, the students will need to decide what inquiries they want to make. And the teacher's role is to spark curiosity and prompt reflection. At first, the prospect of planning a STEM lesson that incorporates so many fields might sound daunting. We talked about interdisciplinary learning right now, but it can actually be really fun process to design a curriculum. This is because STEM teaching is not only only more engaging learning experience for students. It can be more interesting for teachers too. It is less about learning content to teach and more about creating an environment that encourages creativity. And there can be a few more things which can be kept in mind while planning lessons. Firstly, I think a good STEM lesson should be hands-on. Best STEM lessons involve practical activities where students can use their hands, whether they are designing a concept or creating and building something themselves. This way, students are far less likely to become bored or distracted. Plus, it is rewarding for them to have a final product to evaluate. Secondly, I think it should mimic real life scenarios. So this is another reason why hands-on learning is so essential. One of the most important things about STEM is that it helps students learn skills that will be immediately useful in the outside world. So much of traditional schooling teaches impractical skills, and teachers' goal is to prepare their students for real life. One method for planning lesson, which we talked about, was engineering design process. We talked about the project-based learning strategy should encourage open-ended designs, creativity, and practical solutions. We talked about ask, research, imagine, plan, create, test, and improve the engineering design process. In the first episode, we covered this. And another method which we talked about was 5E lesson planning. I think this is the best way to begin with STEM lessons. The 5E lesson planning is teaching and learning process through 5 phases. And these 5 phases are engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. I think these points can be kept in mind while beginning with the STEM teaching or the teachers who are already implementing STEM curriculum in their schools. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. What is the difference between STEM and Esteem? Is this the method to improve the existing STEM curriculum? How can it be infused in the classroom? Nisha, ma'am, for you.
Yeah. Sorry. So difference between STEM and STEAM. So both the terms, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and STEAM, there is an infusion of arts. I think without arts, anything is impossible. And this art doesn't mean that we are infusing a point of drawing something. Art, drama is an art. Poetry is an art. So I will just give you one example. In my sometimes in my maths classes, when students are not able to comprehend some formulas, they come up with their own raps about formulas. So that is the infusion of arts. The difference between STEM and STEAM is the infusion of arts, the drama, the poetry, or we can say that this is not the improvement of existing STEM curriculum. It is just going one step further to infuse those students who are, if we talk about the Gardner's multiple intelligence theory, having multiple intelligences. So it is about the differentiation. It is about including all students. What are their learning styles? Including all students. So I think to infuse STEAM, we should consider that what ways a student learn, with what ways we can infuse their learning styles into our teaching. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anubha, ma'am. Welcome, Anubha, ma'am. The next point is for you. Literature shows that the range of technology used inside the classroom has boomed with the rise of smart boards, digital textbooks, and most notably the tools offered on the internet. Even we can see that due to the COVID pandemic, teachers and schools are fully dependent on technology. But what does what does this continuing growth in education technology mean for teachers? Yes, Anubha, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for this wonderful opportunity to let me express my views. When I started taking care of computer education in school, that was when I was teaching biotechnology to 11th and 12th, and since I was extensively using computers for teaching of biology and biotechnology, my school asked me to look after the computer science department so that the computer teachers start integrating their subjects into the ICT. And this was somewhere in the year 2010 to now, more than a decade. If I see what teachers see technology as, I will put it in 5 T's. And these 5 T I identify as treasure, trendy, tricky, tough, and terror. So the teachers were overwhelmed with the plethora of information, tools that they can find on the ICT platform. They could also identify that when we are using these tools, the student identify us as trendy teachers. They are in sync, they are in vogue, the children relate more with those teachers. But then with the little nuances that they identified in their usage, where they got stuck, where they faced issues of cybersecurity or compatibility with their systems that they were using, or maybe the upgrades that were happening in the app and they were still using the older version. It can be as simple as the older version of Windows and the newer version of Windows. And it may be something more to do with the development of newer techniques in a given app. So they also started identifying it as certain areas of tricky usage of the apps. And then you have to be very cautious. We have seen in this recent past, so many videos of teachers going viral, where a teacher was not very comfortable and didn't realize that the camera was on or the mic was on, and something went on to the entire audience. So they started identifying it as sticky. Of course, there is a fraction of teacher who identify this as stuff, and then another fraction who find it as terrorizing, because the domain is very vast. So if I put it simply, this is what the teachers saw technology as. But nonetheless, there is not a single faculty member who will deny that ICT has put us into a pool of treasure. We have so much to do, we have so much to learn. And the minute we realize that we can absorb and grow from it, that is when the transformation starts.
Thank you, ma'am. Are you elaborating further on this part?
If you want me to elaborate further, I can.
Yes, you can.
I can talk about the transformation that the teachers are looking into, because if I can see in my question, you asked what is the range of technology that the teachers are using. The range is very vast.
I think the next question is related to that part.
Yes.
Do our teachers technologically literate to understand and use technology in STEM subjects? What kind of challenges do teachers face in implementing technology in their classrooms? What factors support or prevent teachers from using ICT in their classrooms?
Thank you, Sushilji. Just like we identify development stages in children, I think with respect to use of technology, if I say what do teachers are the teachers technologically literate, I will categories, because there cannot be a blanket yes or no as an answer. The teachers are at various developmental stages with respect to use of technology, and these developmental stages are the formative stage, that is the beginner stage where the teachers may be. There are certain set of teachers which are in a progressive stage. They have become fairly comfortable with the use but not very competent with the use. There are certain teachers which are at progressive stage. They are competent with use of technology, and now they have to expand the ambit of usage of technology into their day-to-day activities. Then you see the transformational teachers, the transformational faculty members who start using the different technological tools, apps for collaborations, for interconnections, passing it on to the students, involving the students to do a lot. And then there are achievers who actually start showing the differences in the usage of technology. And this graph varies depending upon whether we are talking about a rural area school or we are talking about an urban area school, how well connected the school is, and of course, how much the teacher is stimulated with respect to the leader, the team that is being guided, with respect to the intrinsic drive of learning within the teacher. We are a very, with respect to demography, we are a very diverse nation. So it is imperative to say that we will see all the stages in India. And we will see, possibly we might see more of developmental stages in rural areas, but we might also find some examples of achiever areas in those areas. So when we talk of what kind of challenges that these teachers are facing in these different areas, this becomes very crucial. Because as an institute, or as an individual, one major constraint that we see with respect to implementation of ICT in education is the budget limitations. There are some over-the-counter tools which are available, but there are so many tools which are having some amount of financial implications to it that limits us with respect to usage of certain tools. For that matter, if we do talk about some of the platforms that the teachers are using these days, we talk of Skype, we talk of the Zoom sessions, we talk of Google Meets, we talk of Microsoft Teams. So all these platforms have their own user friendliness as well as their limits to how much unpaid or a paid platform will allow. Another limitation that comes to implementation of ICT and usage of STEM is the lack of professional training. STEM is implementation of science, technology, engineering, mathematics, obviously inclusive of arts, into your teaching learning procedures. And in this online module, it becomes imperative that you have to use ICT. So if you're not adequately trained, if you are not much exposed, we will not be able to bring in effective transformation into the classrooms. Poor infrastructure is one factor which might limit the implementation of the tools into the classroom. But what I identify as a major resisting factors over and above the budget or the infrastructure is the resistance to change. That is a mindset problem that we have to fight against. Not that we have not been using STEM in classrooms earlier. If you talk to students of the classrooms which were decades ago, you will have anecdotes of teachers who used to bring simplest of tools, something as simple as a piece of wood into the classroom, a broken slipper into the classroom, and transform it to wonderful ideas. And we have example of, I always quote this example, Mr. Arvind Gupta. You can visit his website, toysfromtrash.com. He's actually used trash and he has transformed the scenario of STEM into classroom. So infrastructure and budget is never so much a constraint as much as it is the resistance to change that we see in some of the members, that mindset that whatever I know is the best, or whatever I'm doing is the best, or this is the best way to do. There is no best way and there is no best fit. There has to be a diversity because we have to cater to a differentiated population that is learning in the classroom. Then the other limitations that we see in faculty members is there are no systems in place. How do we connect? The devices or the softwares might be unreliable, and they are not getting adequate support from the administrators of the school to implement these technologies into the classroom. But I see these as very unimportant factors. The most important factor is if we have to implement STEM, we need to have that drive to explore, to learn, to do ourselves. And the minute we start doing it, we'll be able to implement it into the classroom. Nothing can stop the teachers to do it. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. How the use of ICT promotes differentiation in STEM classroom? That's for you.
ICT, as I said, makes STEM trendier, easier, less time taking, and very divergent. And today, I think when we are sitting across different geographical locales, ICT is the only medium. Beyond that, ICT also facilitates a greater impact with respect to learning by doing is an area which comes to every child through using ICT. I do not need to have to set my home. I don't need to follow the same trash that my teacher used in the classroom to show me an experiment, because system is something which most of the children have at their home, unless they are really challenged with respect to their backgrounds. So when most of the children are working either on a mobile or a tablet or a system, if I expose a child to different sites where they can go, explore, learn, all we would require is to create that spark of tinkering in them. That is what the Atal Innovation Mission is doing. They are creating that stimulus, they are creating that spark. And then once you give them the platform, you will find children going from 0 level to 10 level on the Scratch platform in time that I never imagined the child will be doing it. And not that the child has spent hours in it, it is just that the drive within the child to do it, and it catch the fancies of the child. It also gives us a platform where we can give differentiated problems to the children. We need not have the same problem going to all children. When we are in a classroom situation, what happens when a teacher walks in, ideally, either we dictate the same kind of question, okay, solve the question, or we give, we are carrying a toolkit with us and we give 2-3 tools to the children. And most of the children are doing similar kind of thing. But if we have ICT and if we have a data bank, can you imagine how many number of questions you can have there? How many variety of games, simulations, models you can have in one single click? And each child can do a different kind of experiment that expands the practice of STEM in a smaller classroom or a larger classroom. And with the innovations that have come into the ICT domain, like the augmented reality and the virtual reality, the real life simulations that we provide to the children makes it very exciting. Okay. Imagine in a kindergarten classroom, a teacher walks in and with the help of these ICT tools, she's able to show a dinosaur to the children in the classroom, which is what is happening today in the augmented reality classrooms. Okay. I always quote another example when I talk of augmented reality, and that is a very beautiful application of STEM in classroom. In schools in Japan, augmented reality simulations are used to create an earthquake or a fire situation in a building. And the children have to navigate their way, and they have to actually apply the trainings that they have learned in their disaster management to steer out of the situation. So these kind of gamification models of augmented virtual reality are actually going to bring the STEM to the next level of application and learning in the classrooms. And obviously they will establish interdisciplinary connections, because then a child is not taking a class as a science class or a mathematics class or a social studies class. I know I went on a picnic and this is a mountain, and suddenly this mountain, which was a dormant volcano, turned into an active volcano. Now the lava is flowing all around and I have to decide, take an instant decision what I have to do. So you can put a child into such a situation with these tools. And you can do all the wonders of skill application that you can think of.
Really, ma'am, great points. Even not only in kindergarten or lower classes, even in higher, in class 11, 12, when they go, especially with physics or chemistry, they used to assume some of the students, they are having good imagination. They assume, okay, something is like this. They are considering charges in 3-dimensional something somewhere, and they are finding electricity or force, whatever they want to find. But all the students, they are not able to understand on that level. But if we consider some type of visual understanding, definitely even those students who are average in their thinking, they can understand these concepts very well.
Thank you so much, Sushilji, for reminding. I've been doing it with higher classes only. With lower classes, I've been guiding my faculty members. But with higher classes, Yes, you reminded me of my days when I taught biology and models of DNA to the students, and when they were unable to understand the spatial dynamics. That is when these ICT tools came in very handy. The three-dimensional tetrahedral model of carbon and how the DNA folds into a spiral and what are the compatibility of the base pairings. That is something that is beautifully taught through these ICT models.
Right, and in especially in chemistry, everything they used to assume, but the things they can't visualize. But by this application, at least they can visualize the things. These are so important tools. Thank you, ma'am, for elaborating this important point. And next question is again for you. What is the role of administrators or principals in implementing STEM education in schools?
Extremely important. In a team of 50, 100 teachers, the self-driven faculty members will never be a large number. So the role of the administrator and the principal becomes very crucial in bringing the incorporation of STEM into day-to-day classroom teaching throughout the classes. As a principal, I feel it is very important that I should be facilitating the exposure to my faculty members, which is what I always do. I inspire my teachers, I guide them with the sources available to me, that this is where you can go, this is what you can find, this is how you can collaborate. That is the role of leaders. And if I'm able to inspire my teachers to learn, if I'm able to give them that spark, that stimulus, that drive, so that they turn into self-driven innovators, that is when the school is going to start growing with the progressive trend. It is also very important for the leader of the school to understand the role, because the times are changing and we need to understand that there is certain amount that we will have to keep aside in the budget for improving the infrastructure of the school that is going to cater to the requirements of changes in the technological advancements. We also need to identify, moderate, and facilitate all these resources to our teachers, to our school, to our students. Be it improving the computer proficiencies, which is as simple as increasing the drive storage, getting the latest versions, or be it onboarding of different platforms to have the different resources being available to my teachers. My teachers should have access to KineMaster to produce videos, to show the simulations. They should be having access to various resources, which they should be able to bring into the classroom. So the role of the principal or an administrator is very important. And it becomes equally important for us to be aware of what is happening in the world. What are the best practices? And I should be able to differentiate what should go to the faculty and what can be ignored.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome back, Meera ma'am. How can teachers implement STEM pedagogy in the early childhood classroom?
Thank you, Mr. Sinha. And before I move on, Anubha, I really liked what you said, and I'm sure that the school is really lucky to have a very tech savvy and absolutely on top of tech principal at the helm, because that's really, really important. And everything that you said made so much sense. Yeah.
Thank you so much. But I'll just take 1 minute because I think I must share this anecdote. When you call me tech savvy, I have been a person who says no to, I used to say no to technology, and a sustainability driven and a bio ardent follower at heart. And my brothers are both software engineers. So when they started their engineering couple of decades back, they used to make fun of me because it used to take 1 day for me to type one word page. From then, when my school appointed me head of the Department of Computer Science, they mocked at me. So today, when I look back at my journey, I say, yes, technology is important. So I'm not, I won't call myself very tech savvy, but yes, I'm a tech learner. Thank you, ma'am, for your kind words.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. So taking off from what Anubha is sharing about, how important technology is, and I will now move to the beginnings of teaching, right, where we start in the early childhood classroom. So the question posed here is that how can teachers in the early childhood classroom be able to incorporate STEAM in their lessons? And like I said, as I have been reading through the various research that I have come across, I think it makes absolute sense to start early, simply because there is a very strong connection that researchers have made with what sticks, as children, and what you develop and grow as a child, because as children, I think they are innately curious. I mean, we all know that, they rip apart anything that they see. They little toddlers, as small infants, they pick things, they taste it, they smell it, they open it, they try to do so many things to something that they have found new. And that's because there is no judgment that is clouding their minds about exploring anything. So this innate curiosity is something that we need to tap into, and therefore starting the STEAM education right in the preschool is of paramount importance, according to me. And I would go ahead and talk about also in the question that I had addressed earlier, that how do we get teachers to start thinking? I think that STEAM education gives such a beautiful structure for thinking for teachers, because they have to think through those multidisciplinary subjects. And the whole idea of knowledge not being compartmentalized into a math and a science and say literacy and things like that. The moment you bring in STEAM education, I think it's beautiful to see the integration, and therefore starting off this early and letting children know that knowledge is not compartmentalized, and how the brain makes connections with knowledge is something that is completely incredible, because somewhere that light bulb goes on when you see something here and you remember something of the past. That's how the brain starts making connections. So as humans, that's how we understand knowledge. And nothing better than STEAM to bring those connections alive and stimulate the input so that there is great output for them. Mr. Sushil, I would also go on to answering the next question, which you are going to pose to me, saying what are the STEAM activities that can be done in preschool, because it's very connected to this. So if you don't mind, I will go ahead and answer that.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, please.
Yeah. So it's very interesting, and I'm so excited to actually start this in the school because I came across this really nice, again, website, which is, it's actually a...
Ma'am, you are not audible.
Sorry. I said I came across this site again. It's like a blog. It's called sixthbloom.com, which again is very interesting STEM activities. I'm just going to maybe read a few for you from here, and I will post the link on the chat box. So here I came across some really simple to execute. It's called ice cube painting. Okay, so this primarily involves taking ice cubes in ice trays, putting some food color in it, different colors, and putting a popsicle stick, and then taking it out once it freezes and bringing it to the table to see, to explore questions like, how does water freeze? Is the ice cube now solid when frozen? And why is the ice cube melting? And all of these science questions are explored through the art of creating a form of art with the ice cube sticks and the popsicle sticks with different colors. So I think that this is a great way to for preschool teachers to actually talk about everything to do with the state of matter without really going into the terminologies. Another very interesting activity I came across, it's called the nature scavenger hunt. Now what the teacher does here is, all she does is brings brown paper bags, and she asks, and she puts color blobs on the outside of the brown paper. And she tells the children to take those brown paper bags and go out in nature and match the colors that they see in nature to the color palette on the brown paper. And by virtue of doing that, children are scavenging, they are doing a nature walk, they are asking a ton of questions about how things grow, and is this all about God's creation? And there can be a lot of conversation, and that can also provoke them to think. So for example, some of the science questions that the teacher takes up is, what do plants and trees need in order to grow? Why do leaves have so many different colors? How is it that they have so many different colors? And even it instigates their senses, the rustling of the leaves, the texture of the leaves, things like that. So these are very beautiful activities, simple and yet very powerful STEAM activities for preschoolers. And there are tons of it on this website, and many websites are there which can give you that. Another interesting activity was about science weather activity, where the teacher demonstrates how clouds are formed using the shaving foam, and she also uses a story along with it, and a video to show how clouds are formed and how rain is coming out of those clouds, the different types of clouds. And of course, there is art infused in all of this. So these are very simple ones which kind of generate a lot of thinking, multidisciplinary approach, as well as structure for learning. So the teacher, when she plans her lesson, has to definitely look at how she can bring all of these ideas together. And I will just post the thing here. It's called www.sixthbloom. There were also several others that I came across, but this one had quite a comprehensive list of activities. And I think preschoolers can really go ahead and use these. There was also many articles in Edutopia that I came across. These are the other two sites that you could look at. One is picturestem.org and the other one is Edutopia, right? So these are the articles, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Nowadays, you are doing a lot of research on STEM. So many.
Yes.
Great. What will the result of providing professional development to preschool teacher in STEM literacy have on their dispositions towards STEM versus STEM?
Right. Yeah. So basically, let's understand. Let's look at all our preschool teachers, right? So whenever we recruit teachers for preschool, there is a basic requirement that we all look at. But none of us expect that our preschool teachers will come in with understanding of heavy content knowledge and concepts of sciences or mathematics or even language right? So there is this understanding that a preschool teacher has to be fun, energetic. The attributes and the dispositions or the qualities that we are looking towards a preschool teacher is quite defined in our minds and maybe in the roles that they play in their classrooms, right? So I think that if we have to train them for STEAM, and like we have discussed earlier, that training the teachers for STEAM is imperative. It's not something that might come naturally. While I agree with Anubha that yes, even in our decade, teachers did bring in stuff that got us thinking. And I really like the example of the broken slippers that she gave. And so yes, they did do it. But today we have we have ICT on our side. We have a lot of understanding of how pedagogy and how best effective learning happens, right? So keeping all of that in mind, if we decide to train our preschool teachers for STEAM, then I think that her whole life changes. I think her whole thinking will change. I think that it will make so many connections for herself in her mind that that she's going to really be able to see the difference in the way she starts thinking about things, right? So yes, it's going to make a lot of difference in the disposition of the teachers, in the quality that the teachers are going to get. So here I'd just like to give a slightly a side example. So in my previous professional experience, I have a science background, but I love the humanities. Okay, so in my earlier organization, I started teaching a subject called Global Perspectives, which is a part of the Cambridge curriculum. And if I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Global Perspectives content, which is completely if you can say in many ways interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary in terms of the content itself. So while I started teaching that, I just got drawn towards that subject and I started teaching it. And after a few years of teaching, I realized that it completely changed my thinking process. It completely rewired my brain. And, that whole neuroplasticity changed, my brain changed the way it started thinking. And I could bring that thinking back into sciences. I could bring that thinking back into English literature teaching. And that's what a STEM training could do potentially to teachers. It can change the way the neurons fire in your brains. It can change the way you think and then apply yourself in class. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. But STEM is more than just robotics and coding classes. Are you agree with this?
Oh, was this question for me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, of course, it's much, much more than that. And I'm more than happy to bring the arts into the STEAM. I like that progression of making it from STEM to STEAM. Because typically we all have mindsets like Anubha spoke about. It's really a mindset problem, right? So we are so structured into thinking that this is science and this is mathematics and this is art and this is something I don't know and this is something I know, and also gender stereotypes, right? So basically, I think that definitely STEAM is more than just coding. And so even the last time when I spoke about the spaghetti marshmallow experiment, which is basically which got kindergartners to design the tallest tower using 20 spaghetti sticks. Now, of course, it is basically an activity which is embedded in the engineering design of things or the architectural design of things, but yet you will see elements of so many different things in it. So yes, I don't agree. I do agree that it is more than just robotics and coding. And we tend to give examples of, or we believe that science and mathematics has more affinity to the STEM education kind of route that we take. But I think that art education can also give an equally powerful thinking process. So we do have this art first curriculum that we run in grades 1 to 5 in our schools. And trust me, if you look at the content of the art first education, it will just blow your mind. It will blow your mind to see how much art can develop the critical thinking, the communication, the collaboration, the problem solving, and all of those things that we believe that maybe a science and a mathematics and architecture can resolve. So yes, I do agree that it is much, much more than just science, technology, and engineering and mathematics.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Welcome, Radhika ma'am, sorry. How can the arts...
Sorry to disturb you, Sushilji. I would like to add one thing which Meera ma'am just said. It
Yes,
just
yes,
clicked
yes.
into my mind
Yes,
when
yes,
she
ma'am.
talked about STEM, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The question also arises about why science. Firstly, there is science, then technology, then engineering, and then mathematics. Many few people know about this, that in the beginning it was not STEM, it was MET. It was science, mathematics, engineering, and then technology. Why they have put science and mathematics at both the ends? Because these are the pillars. These are the pillars for the STEM education. So when we talk about that, whether STEM is about robotics or coding, but I always figure it out that when we infuse other subjects into these subjects, we create wonders. We have seen when we talk about the differentiation, when we talk about the differently achievement gap in the students, then if we club mathematics with computers or the computer programming or science with computer programming for that matter, and solving the problems with engineering design process, and as Meera ma'am wonderfully explained, the art infusion, this as interdisciplinary approach, the teachers have the tools to create critical thinkers and problem solvers. So I think we should also think about that why in the STEM, the both the pillars are at the end. And then we are infusing arts into it. Now the next step, there is a stream also in which the reading is also infused. Now that it is STREAM, the stream, the reading part is also there. So why this S and M, this science and mathematics are the pillars? That is the best way to, I think about it.
Thank you, Nisha ma'am, for your great inputs. Next topic is for Radhika ma'am. Radhika ma'am, welcome. How can the arts, visual and performing arts in Esteem be implemented in the classrooms?
Yeah, thank you. Namaste and a very warm welcome to my co-panelists and all the people who are logged into this meeting. So, just hearing all the inputs and all the progressive thoughts of my colleagues gives me great hope that we are in the right place and having the right discussions and discussions that matter. So, how can the arts, that the visual and the performing arts, be implemented in the classroom? I think this comes down to the roots of our education system. Our ancient education system was much holistic. Like, for example, in the Gurukul system, the students were left with the Guru, and the Guru kind of infused all the elements, whether it was painting a picture, whether it was washing clothes, whether it was cooking, whether it was archery or life skills or everything. The Guru designed the curriculum. It was individualized, it was unique, and every child came out of that learning system with life skills and much better equipped to handle life. Of course, we had these problems of the caste system and other things, and education being denied to certain groups. But if you really see, those ancient systems had much more value when we migrated to so-called the anglicized education system. I think from decades we have put up these filters. If you are a 90 percenter, then you will go into engineering or science or whatever. If you are a 60, 70 percenter, then perhaps you can get into a bank or get into some business or whatever. And if you are lower than that, then there is absolutely no hope for you. You just go into the humanities. So for us as educators, we need to take out these filters, and we need to give equal importance to the visual and performing arts in our classrooms. So for example, right from early childhood, the teacher tells the story of the thirsty crow, that the crow dropped the pebbles into the jug of water and the water came up. And it is so easy to connect this with the Archimedes principle. The Archimedes principle is just that when you add something, there is equal amount of water displaced. So the same connections need to be made in our classrooms. We need to equip our teachers to make these connections in the classrooms. The connection between math and music, for example, is well documented. So many musicians have been great at math and vice versa. And in fact, there have been lots of studies and lots of research work done that people who are exposed to Mozart, it's called the Mozart Effect. People who are exposed to Mozart for about 10-15 minutes, their math skills are up to a greater level. So, now we have the MRIs, or we have the imaging, or we have the scans. Music and math, they highlight the same areas of the brain. So, when a person is doing music or when a person is doing math, it's the same areas of the brain that are getting highlighted in a scan. So, obviously, there is a very, very strong connection, and it is up to us to strengthen that connection. So as I think Anubha ma'am mentioned that she uses rap to teach formulae, we have to be innovative. We have to perhaps call the music teacher into our math class or into our chemistry class. I've used music to teach the periodic table, or I've used music to teach them the parts of the skeleton. So it's not it's not impossible. We need to find those connections, and we as heads of institutions or as educators, we need to give these opportunities to our students to make these connections. We can't be teaching in these very regimented, you know, uh, uh, ways and say, this is a math class and you will only sit with a pen and paper and do your math sums. This is a music class or this is a dance class. We have to give those opportunities. Fortunately, we have flexibility at least in the early years and elementary school and in junior school. As we move higher and higher up, we find that it's only a rat race to score marks at the board exams or to qualify for various entrance exams and all. But at least in the early years or in the junior school, it's very important to make these connections. So for example, I'll just give you a couple of examples which I have come across and which I have also implemented. We were doing I'm a biology teacher, and we were doing vaccination and how are vaccines prepared, what are the 4 different types of ways of vaccinations, and I found this very captivating story of Edward Jenner and Louis Pasteur, and how they got thinking about vaccination. And I did the role play. I used elements of drama and theater. It was time consuming, believe me. It takes a little more time, a little more planning. But till date, even after so many years, my students still remember the role play, and they will remember the way the vaccine is made, not because it was on page 172 of the textbook, but because they have done it through drama. And when you're teaching poetry, for example, you have a rhythm pattern. You have AABBCC. That's math. The It's up to the English teacher or the teacher who's teaching poetry to bring out that connection between the meter or the rhythm of the poem, and bring it into her English classroom. Say, this is what is math. There is a rhythm pattern to it. There's a meter to it. Pythagoras theorem, for example, it is the root of all design. the Fibonacci series. So the Fibonacci series is, it's a wonderful example of a math formula, and the Fibonacci series is called the golden ratio. We find this golden ratio in nature. We find it in seashells. We find it in the way the flowers are arranged on a tree. We find it in the way the tree produces branches. So there is a connection already. It's up to us on how we can infuse it and how we shouldn't be teaching them in straight-jacketed ways. So, in my opinion, we must have co-teaching, we must have flexible scheduling, we must have flexible assessments, because it's all very well to say there is integration and we are teaching together. So we must have flexible assessments. If I hand out a math paper, I should be able to tell my student that you can either write the answer, you can sing the answer, or you can take a video of your answer dancing to the same formula. I want to know whether you have understood this, and I should be able to provide this opportunity to my students or to my educators. So it's all perspective, dimensions, balance, color from the arts, from the fine arts. They all have to do with math. Whether you are knitting, then it's a pattern. Embroidery, it's a pattern. Crochet, quilt making, textile designing, it's a pattern. So whether it is creative or whether it is hardcore science and technology, the two are together. And in the real world, they are always going to be together. The sciences, they rely very heavily on the visual arts skills. For example, if a scientist wants to tell the world about what he has discovered, he needs a way of words. He needs to communicate. He needs to have the skills to put it down in writing. He may have discovered the best thing on earth, but if he's not able to communicate it either by way of words or by making a model or by showing a video, then his discovery or his innovation is limited. Every scientist will be limited if he does not have at least some artistic ability. And Howard Gardner says that if we don't put the A into education, we don't put the arts into education, it's only half-brained education. We all know about using both halves of the brain, the left and right brain, and the cerebral hemispheres, etc. So if we are not using, if you're not giving these opportunities, we're only using half brain. And we need to give our students and the next generation these opportunities and the skills to put their ideas forth in whatever way that they choose. And more, as we move to the education needs have completely changed. What we used to teach 2 years back is redundant and irrelevant now, especially in the scenario of what the education industry has gone through a complete turmoil. It's been like a VUCA world. It's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And how are we going to be able to empower our students to take over this VUCA world? Is to give them all the possible skills. We don't know what careers will happen, so give them the skills. Yes, thank you.
Ma'am, you stop. How beautifully you connected the things. It was really amazing. It's really great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ma'am, next point is again for you. The world went from STEM to Esteem quite recently, recognizing the need of a world with not just scientists and engineers, but also professionals in arts, humanities, and social sciences. In what ways can our school science curriculum integrate the skills of STEAM?
Yes, I have covered part of it in my previous response as well. So I think, we often neglect subjects like civics. I think having a proper civic sense or developing a, a citizenry which is empowered and enlightened is the root of all our our global relations. It's a global village now. At a click of a button, I can attend a conference in another part of the world. On this conference, there are people connected from different parts of the country, different parts of the world. If I don't have those sensitivities and those sensibilities to understand, uh, I'm not going to make any difference. There was this wonderful. I'm sure many of us have encountered this. That at the end of the World War II, there was this person who said that what is the use of education if the best scientist built a gas chamber to kill so many people, or the best science brains, or the people who were hired to build the gas chambers to in the Nazi invasions and whatever. What is the use of that education if they did not have that sensibility, if they did not have that accountability, or if they did not have those values incorporated into their education system? So I think it's very, very important and pertinent, um, in this day. For example, today, I think the most important role in the school is of the school counselor. It's not the class teacher, it's not the math teacher, not the science teacher, it's the school counselor. Why? Because she can make a real human connect with the student. Students who have been home for the last 2 years have not had interaction with peers. It has adversely affected their minds. It has adversely affected their thinking. It has adversely affected relationships. So the nothing can be more far from the fact that we only need machines, or we only need buildings. We need humans, and to think humanly, and to have life skills, and to incorporate what our social sciences teach you. How do humans? We all learn as social beings. Social learning constructs, Vygotsky and all, are very extremely important. Why do they emphasize that a child having that, there can be so much of research going on in this? So we need to have the social science curriculum very strongly connected to our life skill curriculum and to our STEM curriculum, in order to make it more meaningful. A child is not going to be making those connections if he doesn't find it, that it is connected to his day-to-day life, or that it will have an impact on his uh, his future career. We have seen that the student who's a topper in science or technology or math or engineering, they fail miserably when they have to lead a team, or they fail miserably when they have to design a project collaboratively, because they haven't learned these skills. They haven't learned to think divergently. They have learned only convergent thinking. They have learned that only I need to know, if I need to know this thing, I need to know the laws of engineering or the laws of math, and I can do it. It doesn't work that way. Whether it is designing a building, or whether it is designing a hospital, or whether it is designing or thinking of environmental problems, you need the inputs of the social science curriculum a lot. Civics, I think, and citizenship education, democratic thinking. Are our students equipped to take decisions? Are we permitting them to take decisions? At every stage of their life, the decisions are taken by parents, by teachers, or by some other adults. Are we equipping our students to think of the responsibility that they have as a democratic, uh, in a democracy? How many of our youngsters have a voting card and would want to vote? It seems to be the last this thing, but this kind of thinking and this kind of thing is what is needed, and what is being neglected. Schools, many schools have a leadership program, and that's, I think, a wonderful place where a student can hone their leadership skills. So I would say that you know and it's also proven that when the students apply for education overseas, they are not looking at their science percentage or their math percentage. They're actually looking at whether they've held these leadership responsibilities, whether they have been team players, whether they have participated in community service projects. And again, time and again, these are the important things. But in schools, um, the parents are, they really want to know, but science में कितना percentage आया उसका? What is the percentage in maths? When you try to tell them that there is a leadership activity or we want your child to be part of the school, no, 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 no. It will interfere with his score. So, it needs a complete overhauling of the system. And I think we can make those changes within our systems. We can start small, and I'm sure it will pick up as a movement that we, you know, parents will see value in it, that my child is turning out to be a fine human being or a better equipped global citizen. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Greatly said. And hopefully, in due course of time, people are also changing their mindset. So hopefully, they will accepting all these changes. Ma'am, next is again for you. Just including and embedding technology does not make something STEMified. Are you agree with that?
Uh, yes, so technology is a tool, and technology can be used as a tool to teach any kind of curriculum. So just because you have included a new tech tool in your curriculum or you've included robotics or coding, you can't say that we have a high STEM score or we are we have a very good presence on the STEM scene. We it, it we have to use technology as the right way to make connections. So I would say that if I'm using technology to connect with a school overseas to find out what are their environmental problems in that place, or to find out how do they celebrate festivals, or to find out what problems do they have commuting to a school, for example, then I am really using technology as a powerful tool to make these human connections. But just by saying that I'm teaching coding, so I'm a STEM school, or I am, we are very high up on the STEM scale, that is not, in my opinion, that's not the correct way to define STEM at all. Um, and we must learn that tools should, we shouldn't become masters. I mean, we shouldn't be driven by the tool, but we should use the tool to drive our program. We shouldn't become slaves to technology. We shouldn't be, all the time looking for, all of us are glued to screens now for whatever reasons. It's inevitable. We have screens all around us, but we should ensure that we make time for human connections with nature. Children need to get their hands dirty. They need to be out touching the trees, as Meera wonderfully said, to go out to do a nature scavenger hunt. That would be my dream scenario, that if children would be able to go out and do that, and I would be able to teach my units of chloroplasts and chlorophyll and consumers and ecosystems in that scenario. So we need to understand that technology is an enabler, and we must use it as an enabler. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. One last point to you. What are some cautionary elements of implementing a STEM curriculum?
So, as I already mentioned, that we give very, very much importance to science, and even in our timetables, you can see math will have 5 periods in a week, but art will be just 1 period in a week, and that too, if the math teacher needs to complete the portion, then that 1 period will go away. So I mean, we can do something at least to maintain a balance. but more will come when everyone sees that, how important it is to balance, technology and science, and with, as I said, there is a very close connection with the performing arts and math. In my own home, I can give you an example. My son is a PhD scholar. He's working in an area in biophysics, and he is an excellent tabla player. And he uses that as de-stressing. When he is working in the lab, or when he is working with these scenarios, he uses his percussion talent to de-stress. And sometimes he says that it helps him to think and to make those connections. He's an alumnus of IIT Bombay, and I'm sure that this is a practice followed by all IITs, but IIT Bombay for sure. I know that in the first year, every student of the BTech program has to compulsorily choose one elective course. One is the sport. They have to choose they have, a lot of offerings like swimming, basketball, football, and so on. And one is an art course. It could be photography, it could be writing, it could be dance, music, percussion, whatever. They have to take that course. It's an elective course. They have to choose. Those grades are, of course, not reflected on their final transcripts, but they also understand that there is, when you are doing very hardcore academic line subjects, you need to balance it out. All the greatest Nobel laureates have had, either this thing in performing arts, or in music, or in dance, or in painting. And we have examples like Leonardo da Vinci, he was a a fantastic scientist as well as a painter. And if we don't and it's very important for us to ensure that children get a balance of both. We need to have some passion, something which will give us solace, uh, because we're living in very, very stressful times, and we need to emphasize this very early on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. In fact, most of the IITs, they have integrated arts courses nowadays. There was a time when IITs has their ego that they must be having science because they are having background of like that. But most of the IITs nowadays, they are implementing, they are running uh, a lot of art subject courses
Yes.
apart from that. Thank you so much, Radhika ma'am, and to our all panelists. If I think Anuba ma'am want to say something. Okay, fine. Is there something left,
Thank you.
or
We have covered all aspects of questions that you have given, but I would love to add my gratitude to this entire panel. So much of learning, and I've simultaneously opened the resources also that are suggested by Meera ma'am, and I've taken a quick glance at them, saved them. Radhika ma'am, thank you so much. Yes, of course,